tech centers for females, and I can tell you that some of the female tech, particularly the textile, has got a 2% recidivism. Now, we don't hear much of that, but it's true. The recidivism rate in these VOTEC trainings is excellent, and it's in CMCF, and they're doing an excellent job in the females, and we're making strides to try to do the males. I've been to Parchment, I've been through their VOTEC, and it is not being applied as much as it should be, but we're making every attempt to do that. Basically, the major problem that we're trying to get the legislature to listen to is, since 585 was created, and this committee has made every attempt to valiantly, effectively help our people in a humane way. We understand that some people do need, I sent some people yesterday, and that's a necessity. My first and foremost responsibility, as well as the Department of Corrections, is a gatekeeper for the protection of our people, of society. However, we need to do it in the appropriate way. When this was started, we had approximately 24,000 people incarcerated. Mississippi was probably the second most incarcerated per state in the union per capita. Today, last I looked a couple of days ago, was around 17 or 19.
It's
Under 19,000, and it's been a savings of something upward of 50 million over the years. Now, that's a lot of money. Unfortunately, it's gone back into the general budget rather than for incarceration for improvements. And we would like for the legislature to give the Department of Corrections more dollars for increased wages for the staff, guards, etc., and for upgrading the facilities. But that money with savings that 585 has generated has not. But we believe this year the legislature will be receptive, and we do believe the pendulum is swinging. I urge you to again go to this statute if you want to read 47.5.16, and it will tell you our responsibility and our charge. And I think we've been diligent and vigilant and attempting to do that. Could we have improved in some areas? I'm sure we could. But we are, like everybody else, frail humans. But we've been trying to help, and I applaud my committee of these people who are sitting over here. All right, well, that's all that said. I will give people opportunity to talk, but we do have to move along. Not yet. My responsibility is to keep this meeting, and we will try our best to get through by 12. To that end, who's first? Have you members had the opportunity to go over the minutes of the prior meeting? Do you wish to accept them? Do you want me to read them? How do you want to handle it? Mr. Andre?
I move we accept them.
You've had opportunity to read them. We've had them. I've read them. I think they're correct. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a second. So we will disperse with the reading of the minutes, but this is an open forum. If anybody wants to read the minutes in the audience, they're welcome to get a copy. They're welcome to get a copy. Well, not now. See Ms. Fisher later.
Your Honor, can everyone on the dais just please state their name and what their title is? And we also didn't get your name as well.
I think that's an excellent idea. Thank you. I made the assumption sometimes it gets me in trouble. My name is Prentice Harrell. I'm a circuit judge down in South Mississippi in the 15th District. Andre?
Andre Degrees.
Stand up.
Andre Degrees, State Public Defender.
Martin Pace, I'm the Sheriff of Warren County.
Kyle Williams here on behalf of the Attorney General's appointee who escaped from conflict of interest.
I'm Ricky Smith. I'm the District Attorney for the 9th Judicial District of Mississippi. I represent the Mississippi Prosecutors Association.
Ted Booth, General Counsel, Legislative Peer Committee.
Darrell Bone, I work for the Office of Attorney General assigned to the Department of Corrections. Here is their designee.
I'm Travis Patton, Sheriff of Adams County. Glad to be here on this task force today.
I'm Barton Northway. I'm an attorney with the Legislative Peer Committee.
Good morning, I'm Stephen Pickett, the Chairman of the Mississippi Parole Board.
Thank you. As you see, we do have a cross-section of all personalities and types of the government, and we have had spirited discussion on multiple different issues before we finally pass them. We do have a proposed recommendations that we intend to present to the legislature. Mr. Barton will present this in a minute. He will give a brief overview of it. It will be up to the legislatures whether they accept it or reject it, or accept some and reject some. But we will do our part in making our recommendations, of which we have had spirited discussion on multiple issues. It did not go under the wire without sunlight. You want me to go? You ready? Hang on, hold on to the door. Barton will give us our.
Thank you, Judge. I'm just going to walk us through the report and we can have a discussion as we go. This report mainly consists of the MDOC status update, which is pretty much the same report presented by MDOC at the last meeting, the potential findings section and recommendations, all of which we need to discuss and vote on today. Are there any questions regarding the MDOC status update? And this is just for members. Okay, moving on, if y'all could please turn to page 12 in your report, I'm going to walk through the potential findings. And after each one, I'm going to open it up for discussion for the members. The first potential finding deals with parole revocations. Here we discuss the use of TVCs or technical violation centers and how the passage of House Bill 385 in 2018 clarified how they to be used. That's showing promise. There has been an increased use in TVCs, but as that was just passed in 2018, we're still using more time to see how effective that's going to be. Then we discussed how the MDOC report found an upward trend in parole revocations, which leads us to the non-rent section. Y'all should have copies of the report. If they're not in color, this is the first part of recommendation 3. And this discuss how we're recommending that peers should look into why these are going in. I'd like to open the floor to any discussion on the first part of recommendation 3 and that finding for parole revocations. All right. Continuing on, as part of this discussion, geriatric parole eligibility arose. MDOC found that the law were potentially changed to allow nonviolent habitual offenders to be eligible for parole and could substantially impact the budget due to a decline in healthcare costs. This is also in recommendation number 3 in red. As there was much discussion about this, I wanted to make sure we talked about it before we included it in the report. I'd like to ask if anybody has anything to discuss regarding geriatric parole.
For the audience, I could give an overview of what I saw from the geriatrics unit. I made a review of parchment before Christmas, and I went in the geriatrics unit. It basically is the same thing you'd go if you found your grandma, want to see your grandma in a home. It is a home or a place for people with disabilities or of difficulties, health issues. It's first cousin to a nursing home. It's just incarcerated. The issue is, are they danger to society if they were eligible for parole? There was much discussion on that, and there are people that say, no, they did a heinous crime and they should stay in, if they're lifers. The other side of the coin is, well, are they truly a danger to society? If we made them eligible for parole, it would be case-by-case basis, of which I would be in favor of. Because I do think there are some heinous crimes that have been committed by people who owe a price to society, period. And we do have protection of society first and foremost. However, with that said, are they really a danger? But I think if we turn to that overnight, interviewed several people who did not know who I was. I just started talking to them. And without exception, naturally, they all wanted to get out. But many of them don't have a place to go either. And therein is an issue, housing, particularly for the older. But now, if we could transfer, and I hate to say this wide open, I hate to say this on media here, but truth is, if we let them out, they might be on the nickel of a United States government for Medicaid and not on the state budget. And some of these people have extraordinarily high medical bills. And one of our responsibilities that we have as the task force is to look at dollars, but look at dollars in relation to, should they get out, are they a danger? does the many outweigh the few? It's a balancing act, like almost everything else. So we discussed that again, that issue. Last year, it was declined. This year, it's brought up again, and I think the recommendation is there to put it on a case-by-case basis to review these, because it doesn't take but 3 or 4 to run the dollars extraordinarily high. And we're tasked with trying to maintain 585 and saving dollars when we can for the taxpayers. And a few people that are being paid for through the budget of MDOC can be extraordinarily high, versus letting them out and they can get on Medicaid and they'd be on government, federal and Medicaid. Do you understand? That's the issue. Thank you, Bert.
Question. So you spoke about.
I don't mind questions, but kindly keep them brief.
Right. So you're speaking about the cost effectiveness of releasing these inmates and how it would affect either the United States government or the government of Mississippi. Earlier you mentioned that money was reallocated through the state from the savings that you have within the penitentiary system. And
It was not allocated to the penitentiary, it was put in the general budget.
Okay, excuse me a second. So you said that the money was then put into the budget and it wasn't reallocated back into the system. Is there somebody that's overseeing the prison population and representing them on where those funds are going and why they can't go back to give services to, let's say, geriatrics?
I think that's open information. I think any good reporter could find that. I think Mr. Jerry Mitchell has found that. I think he could speak to that. Yes, we know it's hiding information. I know Department of Corrections, it's open. Is it sometimes difficult to receive because of the voluminous information? Christie, you might would speak to that. Ms. Where's Ms.? She's not here. Okay, who would speak to that, Christie? Yeah, it's not your department. Jay? All right.
Is there anybody here representing the prisoners inside the jail that are inside, like, let's say, Parchment, that are ultimately able to sit there and talk on behalf of the inmate at a meeting or something?
A prison advocacy for the prisons, but I hadn't got into that. So let's table that
No,
question.
I'm just
until I get
asking,
to it.
do
Yes.
we have somebody present here?
Today, we don't, because Ms. McCaffey has always been the go-to person, and she is not here today.
What's her name?
Ms. McCaffey, but she is the statistical guru. She knows this stats, but she's not here today for good reason. Go ahead.
Next, we discussed sex offender release and recidivism. The concern here was the lack of housing options and restrictive laws might be keeping these offenders in the system or overly restricting them when they get out, which is resulting in reincarceration. This leads to the second red recommendation on page 12, which states that this should also be part of the review that we will get to. This had a lot of debate when we were talking about it last meeting, so I would like to ask if y'all have any discussion.
Okay, just when you say further, explore or study further, are you saying that the recommendation is that the first recommendation, the parole revocation, you're specifically saying we're asking peer to do it. With the sex offender release and recidivism, you're saying that this body should look into it, not peer?
Well, it's kind of on y'all to vote. I mean, we could add that with geriatric parole as something that we could look into, or it could get suggested, but that doesn't mean that we'll necessarily be able to look into it. So that's something that I wanted to open up.
But as written, clearly the parole revocation is for peer to do it.
Yes,
The other two is not clear. Okay.
that's correct.
And of course, it's the position of the Prosecuting Association we oppose any change in the sex offender part of this recommendation. It seems to me that the recommendation is sex offenders offend or recidivate more often if they're being supervised, so let's not supervise them. And that's not a position the Prosecuting Association can take.
Could I speak to that? I've sensed a lot of sex offenders going yesterday to long term. It was a heinous matter. However, when they do get out, I've had multiple people get out, and they live in one of my South Mississippi towns, there is a guideline that they can't live within 3,000 feet of church, school, daycare, etc. 3,000 feet is a long way, and in many southern towns, you can't go 3,000 feet without being under the shadow of a steeple, or a daycare, or a school. I would like to see us, and last year, the good response from the legislature that they were gonna do it, but unfortunately, they were gonna do it this year, but the person who was gonna spearhead it got defeated. But I'd personally like to see that reduced to 1,500 feet. 1,500 feet would be more effective to be able to find. I've had people that had to go back to the pen because they cannot find a house or housing, and they cannot be classified as homeless, and so they're out of luck. In Picayune, Mississippi, I had that to happen. In Columbia, Mississippi, I had that to happen. So I would like to see that reduced to 3,000 to 1,500. I understand the severity of these criminal acts, and I understand also that there are many people out there that don't want to live by a sex offender, and they have to be monitored, and they have to be signed up for life. And you would say, well, that's a harsh penalty. It is, but it was a harsh crime.
Right.
And many times it was a crime against the child. Yesterday was a small child. And it was a terrible thing. However, if they do get out, we do have to have a place for them to live. And I personally think 1,500 feet, it would be a more appropriate standard, if you'd like to.
And I would, and I appreciate that. I understand that in some of our communities, it's hard for an individual to find a place to live, especially if they have those kinds of requirements. But I'm not gonna put my signature on a document that allows a child molester to move 1,500 feet closer to a child. No, it's not gonna happen.
Andre?
I think that this recommendation is for further study, not to recommend the reduction. There's some of us who think, and some of us have already done the research and are ready to argue for the reduction. But, you know, I think as for the report that's due today, or sometime next week, we're not gonna settle for that. So the question in the report is, should this body continue to look at it? I would say yes. And just with the understanding so that the district attorney knows, there's nothing in here that says the position that you and I have is what we're going forward with, or even
Is
voting
that
on
satisfactory to
today.
you, Mr. Smith? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We'll proceed.
All right, next we discuss transitional housing. This has been a recommendation made in past reports, which we discussed last time as being worthy of revisiting here. Past updates have recommended that transitional housing be specifically appropriated in line item to MDOC, and that the parole board have the authority to place homeless inmates in transitional housing. Additionally, we talked about having the authority to place persons with chemical dependency issues in these transitional houses for intense supervision. This resulted in recommendation number 4 in the report. I'd like to ask if there's any discussion to be had here.
Again, I would add that I think this is the most important, or one of the most important things, that the original House Bill 585, and we discussed this last time in the meeting. I served on the original task force, and we were told, just as the judge spoke earlier, that the savings that would come out of that House Bill 585 would be reinvested in transitional housing, job training, trying to help those individuals who found themselves in the situation of having to go to prison, to give them the tools they need to try to not come back to prison. Because part of what this report says, part of what the original report back then said, is that more people are going into prison now on revocations than on original sentences. That means those people who are getting out can't survive in society as it is with the training, with the tools that they have. So the money we should be reinvesting in that traditional housing, job training, giving them the ability to be able to survive in the outside world.
What you and I discussed earlier, Mr. Pickett.
Oh, sure.
A potential solution, a possible, that I'd like to put the recommendation in. I'm a big believer in a reentry court. I believe that we have to give them the tools as best they can. I have a intervention court that's been very successful from a recidivism rate. The VOTEC training at CMCF has been very successful in and the success rate is basically measured by recidivism. Unfortunately, in past years, we've had a very high rate because they get out and their family doesn't want them. The family's still mad at them. They don't have a trade, they don't have life skills, they couldn't vote, they didn't have an ID, the list goes on. Many of those issues have been cured. They now get an ID. We've worked very diligently to get them licensed, driver's license, that sort of things. But housing is an issue, and also supervision. The Department of Corrections is overworked and overburdened and supervising inmates on post-release after they get out. And they unfortunately sometimes do still have difficulties getting jobs. The intervention court has attempted to teach life skills, i.e. VOTEC, academics. We personally have a partnership with Pearl River Junior College that has been wonderful for VOTEC and academic, and give them skills. They can go to a week, less than a week schools and learn how to drive forklifts and make $6 million an hour. So just simple things that they don't think of, they can work. I would like to propose, today I cannot, because I cannot share jurisdiction with Mr. Pickett on the parole board and the MDOC, that when they get out, come back to intervention court. I can give them a reduced sentence, and I did it a couple of times till I got a little bit in trouble. But I can send them, Dean, say they get a 10-year sentence hypothetically, and I say, no, I'm gonna give you 2 years. Get your attention because you did do something that does have a consequence. We sometimes forget that, but there are consequences for our action. Let them have that lowered or reduced sentence, let them serve it for a couple of years, and then when they get out, either by parole or simply serve their time, put them in intervention court. Today I can't do that because I'm sharing jurisdiction with him and them, but put them on intervention court and let me have jurisdiction over them. And then when they complete, if they successfully complete, and most of them do, but some don't. But if they do successfully complete, fine. We let them out, maybe even expunge. It wasn't a violent crime. But if they do act up and don't behave and do need duty or do need to say, you gotta go, I send them back to Mr. Pickens or them. They could make the decision to revoke the bond, or I could do it. But I think that ought to be proper to the legislature, and I've given you that information. Do I have any comments, suggestions, or thoughts from the members?
Just so I know, if I understand you, you're saying expand the intervention courts to allow parolees to be in it?
If I want legislative approval, because right now I can't do it, and or Mr. Parole Board passes approval. And I think I can, from both of them. I would say, yeah, because they're overworked now. Now, I don't know how successful that would be statewide. I would do it. I had a case yesterday.
Well, the bottom line is any intervention court has to have the local judge approval.
That's right.
So
But
we're
now,
not.
best
we're not-
practice, yes.
You're not forcing the judge to do it, you're just saying, you're just opening it up to parolees.
That's right. But best practices indicate, Pew report would tell you this, the best practices says that intervention and reform ought to start at sentencing. And if you start that, reduce that overall rate at sentencing, and then put them in the back end in that intervention court for a 3-year structured period, it can have good results. Sure, you look quizzical.
Well, I had a question about your intervention court, and my question was, I heard you hit on something that's very relevant, which is life skills. I know people are always talking about rehabilitating and educating people while they're incarcerated. But I know one thing, we transition their bodies, but what about their minds? So I was wondering, did you have a mental health component in there as well?
No, sir, not now. We did have one, and we do have a grant in mind that I received from one of the health providers, and it goes to pay. In case you don't know, a treatment facility can be extraordinarily costly. It can be $6,500, $7,500 for 30 days. Now, that's pretty expensive. We have a grant that'll pay for that, but that grant money won't last forever. And do I have assurance that I'm gonna get it again? No. So, yes, you do have to change their mentality. You can. But I have determined that many people, if you give life-changing dollars, the mind will follow. Ma'am, can I wait on the audience until I kind of take care of business with my member? Any of you members have any other input? Proceed, Mark.
All right, next we discuss reclassification of simple drugs to misdemeanors. I think this pretty much speaks for itself. It's resulted in recommendation 5 in the report. Andre, would you like to speak to this? It came from the memo.
Yes, this is something I presented last year and then re-presented this year, and having had some discussions, and people who know actually what's happened on the ground in Oklahoma, the concept I put out of reducing simple possession to a misdemeanor and making it retroactive, is actually not exactly what Oklahoma did. As I now understand what Oklahoma did was they made it, they reduced it to a misdemeanor, and that would reduce, in our numbers, 1,500 people from coming in. They didn't make it fully retroactive. They made it parole eligible, I guess, for a parole review immediately. So what happened with Oklahoma's record day for commutations is that rather than take the 2,000 to 2,400 people and automatically release them because it's now a misdemeanor, the parole board would review those 2,000 to 2,400 people, and it hasn't been directly related to me from the parole board chair, but I've been told by somebody that would be about a 2 to 3 month process in order for them to review them all, and then so they all they wouldn't automatically become eligible. They would have to go they would have to be reviewed by the parole board. The parole board would then make a recommendation to the governor, and then the governor would be ultimately the one deciding whether or not people who are currently in prison on simple possession would be released. So the 2,400 number that I would like to release could be significantly lower, and I think the ultimate number in Oklahoma was about 700 or 800, and they start with about 700. So it wouldn't be as big a relief as I think we need today in our prison system, but 800 to 1,000 people, as well as doing the transitional housing, which is another 400 to 700 people, we would start making a significant reduction in the prison population, which then allows them to shift resources to do that kind of in-prison reentry work that 585 promised and that they haven't been able to do because they got too many people in prison.
Kind of stand when you finish, you're muffled by the time your voice gets way over here. And your voice will carry much better if you'll stand, so kind of help me out on that. Any other members want to piggyback on or disagree with Andre?
Absolutely. Prosecutors Association, of course, this actual bill was introduced last year.
Kind of stand up, Mr. Ricky.
This bill was introduced last year by an individual from the coast in the legislature. Prosecutors Association fought hard to beat this. This is talking about, just understand what this is talking about. It's talking about making all possessions of controlled substances. The bill last year said less than a trafficking amount. Anything less than trafficking amount, making it a misdemeanor. So that's making all the methamphetamine, all the cocaine, all the heroin, all of those things misdemeanors. There's a lot of side effects that are going to go in that besides what I think is a mistake of making those things misdemeanors. That's going to affect drug courts. It's going to affect municipalities. It's going to affect counties. Because you're basically, and this is what's happening a lot, is we're pushing things down on the counties and on the cities. So all you're doing in this is pushing down the prosecution of these crimes to the counties and to the cities. You're transferring that cost from the state to your municipalities and your counties. Plus, I just think it's wrong to reduce these types of crimes to misdemeanors.
I'd like to agree with you on that one. Andre, I'll speak quickly, then I'll let you say. 8% of property crimes in my area come from drug usage. steal, shoplift, burglary, to feed their habit. And then they get caught, and I put them in drug court. And in drug court, it would directly hurt, because we cannot take a non-felon. They must have a felony record. I can't take misdemeanors. I have found out if I don't have a brick over their head to say, I'll lock you up if you misbehave. If you get out of order, you're on probation, I can send you the pen. That works. It's very effective. And for me to just say, well, you gotta be a good little boy and girl, no. They have to know that I do have the ability to send them. And if you put it on a misdemeanor, it would absolutely dilute that. And I would be very ineffective in the results of the drug court. I can tell you that. No, hold on, you're too much. I gotta get through. Andre, your turn.
Doesn't have anything to do with property crimes. People who are committing property crimes because they are doing drugs should be in drug court.
I agree.
It doesn't have anything to do with possession with intent. It doesn't have anything to do with sale. Those people would still be facing very stiff sentencing, depending on the amount. It only applies to people who have simple possession. Though we know that sending people who are using drugs to prison, shock, doesn't stop them from doing drugs. They just do it in prison. It doesn't. We don't need, prison's not going to deter a drug addict from doing drugs, and it's not going to cure them of doing drugs. We need to have a better community mental health system. If you don't believe me, ask Federal Judge Carlton Reeves. We have to have a better community mental health system, and treating substance use disorder or addiction needs to happen there, not in the Department of Corrections and not in the prison. And the data suggests that we got 1,500 people coming in for simple possession and 2,000 going out. They're only staying for about a year, maybe 15 months. They're still doing drugs, and they're coming out worse off than they were, more likely to do drugs. They've been felony, they can't get a job now. And I understand half of drug court is possession cases. That's not the way it should be. That's not what drug courts are for. If someone's addiction gets to the point that they're breaking into houses, they need to be in drug court, or breaking into cars or stealing. They absolutely need to have that option of drug court. We're sending 1,000 people to drug court and 1,500 people to prison. We gotta stop that.
That's right, that's right.
I appreciate your applause, and I do. Me too. But I will. But don't think the Department of Corrections isn't trying on their guards. Would you work up there for mid-20s and risk your life? And they can't. They're understaffed. So help them out in getting additional dollars for additional people and that. So let those applause go in a different emotional manner to affect your legislature to give the Department of Corrections some of the $50 million back that they put in general fund so that they can enhance the staff. And they can have a more of a professional staff. Now, I will agree with Andre for most of what he said. But I still believe there's a healthy fear when drug court. My first and foremost responsibility when I speak with my people twice a month, and I do in front of all 250, 300 of them.
Judge Harrell, could we finish the presentation and then take each issue and discuss it as a member, as
Yes,
an
we
inquiry?
can. My bad. What I was going to basically say, there's a healthy fear is perhaps not all bad.
Okay, lastly, recommendations 1 and 2, kind of skipped over those at the beginning here. They're pretty straightforward. They just call for continual investment in monitoring workforce training, other reentry and recidivism programs, and problem solving tools. Does anyone have anything to say?
We change problem solving to the new word intervention.
Intervention.
Sorry, can you just speak up just a little bit so it's hard to hear?
I just suggested we change the word problem solving, which was an old word, is from a prior recommendation of ours, to intervention, which is the term that was adopted by the legislature last year.
Yes. All right, that pretty much concludes my summary, Judge. If we want to walk through them.
Did we establish what the geriatric number is? The age, what is it?
60, I believe. It's in the, it is.
60, it's on page 11. The average total term, the time, the dates, it's just.
Judge, would you like to walk us through and then we can vote? I guess we can go through each recommendation.
I would like a consensus from the members of when do you want to vote. Many of you have not received these until recently. And if you need additional time to review this, we can do it via email and vote on the final acceptance, so we can do it today. Andre, you're shaking your head.
I'm ready to vote.
All right, very good.
Judge, Kyle Williams on behalf of the Attorney General's office, as you know, the Attorney General has been in office for only a week and was given this report for the first time only yesterday. So she just simply hasn't had time to devote the attention to this report and the recommendations that it deserves, and to weigh the potential impacts of these recommendations. So to the extent that it would be appetizing to the group here, we would certainly appreciate some additional time just to be able to weigh in immediately.
Do it now or later. If we do it later, we're still gonna do it. Today is Friday, we're gonna do it by no later than next Friday. I'll give you time.
Judge, could we present this to the legislature as discussions more so than recommendations of the committee, since that we are likely not to?
We're tasked, and I meant to say that while ago, and I slipped up on it. So now I'm gonna take a parentheses and do it. I told you what we're tasked with. Many of you, including myself, was appointed by a prior elected official. And that elected official that appointed me is gone. His successor has not made any appointments of anything, and that may be applicable to many of you. A reading of the statute by myself, and I had my staff attorney read it and give me his recommendations. I had another bright young lawyer read it and give me their recommendations. And I believe, I interpret, it's silent as to how long a term. But I personally take the view that you are on it until your successor, or you are reappointed by whoever the powers that be that has appointed you, the Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the House, Supreme Court Justice, or whoever, until they reappoint or take you off and appoint somebody else. Naturally, we all serve the will and pleasure of whoever the appointee was. So the statute is silent as to the term. So I'm taking the position that I'm on until my Chief Justice appoints somebody else. And then you can't. If he does, he does. I'm at will. Now, because of that, I think that all of you who have not been not appointed, you're still active. Now, let's continue this on the, want to wait to vote today or Friday? Andre?
If the request from the Attorney General is in the form of a motion to vote,
I was just going
by email or whatever, I would second that with a deadline day for our vote.
of next Friday. Do I have any disagreement to that before I take you individually? Any disagreement? That's what we'll do. We will give you must have your yes or no, up or down, to Ms. Fisher before next Friday. And if you don't, we're gonna assume that you vote yes. We'll proceed then present. Do you have any questions?
If the will of the committee were to recommend, to find these, the information in the report as is, as findings and not recommendations to the legislature, I would move for adoption of the report today to where we could move on.
That may make it more palatable to you, Mr. District Attorney.
No, Your Honor, as long as it's got the suggestion to suit all suggestion cases to misdemeanors, we will always oppose them.
I have been pointed out by my lawyer for MDOC that the statute in paren B says prepare and submit an annual report. no later than the first day of the second full week, blah, blah, blah. The report shall include the recommendations for improvement, recommendations for transfer of funds. So we're bound by the statute. Oh, that's good.
I would ask that the parole statistics for the year be added to the report.
Do all of you members have the parole hearing annual data? Steve, while I'm passing it out, would you give us a succinct overview of this data?
In 2019, the parole board heard 7,974 cases, which were 34 cases fewer than last year. The population at the beginning of the year was 19,136. The last day of the year, it was 19,187. That's a decline of 34 paroles as opposed to last year, which we saw 8,008 cases. Sadly, 2,692 people came back on revocation in 2018. 2,660 came back in 2019.
Any questions for Mr. Pickett? Questions, thoughts, or comments? We will definitively have this completed by next Friday. Anybody else in the meeting have any other questions, thoughts, or comments? Don't be bashful. All right, I'm going to open the floor now for.
I do have a question. I didn't know, I thought you just made questions of Mr. Pickett.
Any questions, Ross?
Okay,
Or any
I
other
have,
business?
I have a question on, whether or not we can add another issue for consideration to, Mr. Norfleet's excellent report. At the last meeting, when we were discussing the 400 to 700 people that had been granted parole but not released, the focus was on, and I think we got so consumed by the sex offender issue that we didn't get to the other issue that Ms. McAfee mentioned in general, being logistics. And we didn't know what the logistics were. I've had conversations with the parole board and others and tried to figure out what the logistics were of the release. And one, it appears to me, looking back at 585, because I know some people think 585 was perfect, but there were some things we did that may have had some unintended consequences. So I looked specifically at section 45 to 51 of HB 585, and in there are several statutes, and I think someone from corrections or parole could explain maybe better what these code sections are. But what we did was, before 585 on that, and as I understand these sections, it's 47.17, 47.5, 157, and I have a copy of 585 if anybody wants that, and 47.5, 173, and 47.5, 177. And these are sections that involve, before someone can be released, notice has to be given to local jurisdictions. This, as I understand these sections, this is not about the victim notification, that this is, we enhanced victim notification in 585, is that correct? Everybody? Okay. So that these sections don't deal with victim notification, they deal with notifying the local sheriff or district attorney or someone. I guess I could read them and see who actually has to get notice. But before 585, all of these statutes said when an offender is entitled to a discharge from custody, so these are people that have been approved, there has to be this notice, and before 585, it said within 48 hours. We changed it to at least 15 days. So now we have 7,000 or 8,000 people being released every year. So it doesn't seem like much if you're talking about 2 days to 2 weeks, but it was at least 2 days to absolutely 2 weeks. So 7,000, 8,000 people who've already been approved to get out, just waiting on notice to be delivered. I don't think, and I don't recall any study that said 15 days was necessary to get notice from Jackson to Natchez or Vicksburg or even the coast. You can do that, maybe not go back to 48 hours, but 15 days, that 15 days that these 8,000 people have to sit in prison after they've been approved for release doesn't seem to be rational or necessary.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Pickett to respond to that.
Sure. Well, what's happening is, you've got, as you said, it's the number of people that are paroled pending the notice time. And what's happening is that we've got several hundred folks that don't have a place to go, that are being held. Those that do have a place to go, though, are held for the extra 15 days notice, and the notice is sent back to the sheriff's office, I believe the district attorney, the sentencing court. So what it creates is a lull of time that creates a situation where there is no such thing as an emergency parole anymore. If a kid's graduating or somebody's passing away, there is no form of early release of any type of parole. Everything is, 30 days out if everything works perfect. Just reducing the number of days from 15 to 5 would reduce the time, the notice period time, which when you do the multiplier, it will save the state about 1.5 million a year of incarceration days of people that are spent after the notice has been sent to victims. And the large number of people that are paroled, remember, those are nonviolent crimes for which we see people. There's a very small percentage of victims that receive the notification. So the intent of the law was to give notification to victims. Our position is that the vast number of people that we parole do not have registered victims. The notice is going to the local jurisdiction, and it's creating a lull of keeping people incarcerated after they've been approved to be released.
I'm gonna ask Darrell if you would advance the decision of Mr. McCarthy.
Right, well, I just looked up at least one of the statutes, 47-717, and it does look like it's referring to victims as well as jurisdiction. So I think Chairman Pickett just clarified that he doesn't think there's a lot of victims registered, but I would think that having a representative here for victims would be important. But Mr. Malik might be a good one to ask. His office was the one that sent out the notices from records, so he would have more detail on that.
Jay Johnson, Department of Corrections Record Director. Actually, the 15-day notice doesn't play a factor into the actual release date, because the parole board looks at people that are eligible for parole 90 days in advance. If all is approved, that being the residence, place to go, living conditions are sound, then the parole staff lets us know the absolute date that the person is going to be released, which imposes or encompasses the 15 days that the release. So whether the 15-day release notice is included, if it's 48 hours, 15 days, the date that they tell us the person is going to be released is the date that they go home.
An issue that is always out there, do they have a place to go? We want to do the right thing, but when he releases somebody, they've got to determine, do they have a suitable place? Everybody doesn't have that. I see it all the time. The sheriff's not in agreement. He sees it all the time. They do not have a place. Their family members may not want them because of the issues they created. You'd say, well, there's a lot of faith-based that'll take them. Well, until you've tried to get in them. Good luck with that. So there are certain handicaps and there are certain issues. It's not a easy one-size-fits-all solution. And Mr. Malik said that very well, and I appreciate it. But we do nonetheless probably need to reduce that lengthy time to 5 days. That would be a proactive thing. You members think about that, and we will talk about
Yeah, just as a follow-up, the notice to the victims is sent to the victims prior to the actual parole hearing. The decision to release is done after notice was given to them. This is an additional waiting period of time. And Mr. Mallett, you were absolutely correct. If the people that we were discussing were eligible for parole the first time, if they were just coming up and their hearing was 30 days from now, about 2,800 of the people that we see are already eligible when we see them.
Thank you. As you audience can see, this is no easy answer. There are multiple issues involved, and there are. But I can also think you hear that this committee's really been diligently trying to improve. But it's not always so easy. All right. Yes, sir. Mr.
Judge,
G.
to the extent that House Bill 585 sets a deadline for this report for the first day of the second full week of the regular session of the legislature, to the extent that that is Monday, the AG's office would just abstain from voting today.
But I think we've decided that we're gonna vote by email.
We're gonna vote by email, and we're gonna have a deadline of sunset next Friday. Next Friday by 12 o'clock.
I just
You're gonna have
wanted
that
to make
email?
sure that the deadline set forth in 585 doesn't contradict that.
But we're gonna, all members, now, all of you members are in agreement with voting by email to Ms. Fisher by next Friday. And she will give a report immediately thereafter back to us. Is everybody in agreement? Yes. All right. Before I open the floor for public comments, and we are, but I'm not gonna let somebody monopolize. So kindly keep your remarks reasonable. Before I do that, any of you committee members want to say anything to the audience or for the record? Mr. Sheriff Andre, Mr. Cummett, Mr. Ricky, Mr. Attorney General, anything you want to say? Ted? Sure.
I actually would like to meet with some of them, after this meeting, so I can hear your side of this fight.
I'm gonna give
This is my
you,
first day off.
I'm gonna give you some people a chance to talk. But kindly do not monopolize. And you know, we all know what that is. Don't take a mic and tell everything. Ms. Fisher.
Judge, I would like to compliment and thank the Department of Corrections personnel who are here today, who have had an extraordinary time recently. And thank them for their service and their professionalism as always. The Deputy Commissioner and the Director, we especially thank you today.
Y'all stand up. Stand up. I'm gonna give you a round, give them a round of applause, because they worked under difficult situations. You people who aren't applauding, go do their work. Go do their work. They've had extraordinarily difficult times. And they've been handicapped. And I think the professionalism of the majority of the staff that I've worked with has been exceeding. Now, I'm gonna let you go first. Yes,
All right, how's everybody doing? Very happy that so many people showed up. I'm Rakia Lumumba with the People's Advocacy Institute and the Mississippi Prison Reform Coalition. So many of the people here today are here because of the prison crisis. And one of the most important things that I'll start with, and I'll be quick because I only got 3 minutes, and I'm going to pass my time on to a few other people who will speak after me, which will be Sharon Brown, who leads the Mississippi Prison Reform Coalition. And then we have 2 family members, Hanifa Jones and Pamela Brown, who will talk about their experiences. The first thing I'll say is that we understand that this crisis is not just about the lives of loved ones that are inside of prison, but we understand that the insufficient budgeting and money going to MDOC also hinders the ability to have stable, safe conditions for people to work in. It actually decreases the likelihood that someone is going to come out rehabilitated because we don't have proper staffing. We don't have social workers, we don't have counselors, we don't have enough medical practitioners, we absolutely don't have enough mental health services. There's no way that anyone inside is actually going to have the support they need to thrive when they come out on the outside. So we recognize that. So this is not about demonizing anybody who works in MDOC. This is about, MDOC right now is a system that needs to be overhauled altogether. And the state of Mississippi needs to put money into rehabilitation. I think we all agree that parole reform, we want to see it, right? We definitely agree that aging population needs to come home. They need to come home. It's time for them to come home. And that dollars that are saved from 585 absolutely need to go into transitional housing. We all agree with that. We want to see it. We want to see our loved one come home. We also believe and understand that drug use is not a crime, it's an addiction. And so all of the crimes that come with it need to be, there needs to be money funneled into actually helping in the community to provide alternatives for people instead of incarceration to receive that substance abuse support and help so that their loved ones won't have to consistently repeat that cycle of seeing them in and out of prison and the harm that that does to our pockets, right, as family members, taking care of them over and over again. And themselves, right, we need that. There are a few other things that I think Sharon Brown will bring up that we need to think about. One is making 585 retroactive. That community is here to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and pass my time over to Sharon, because the last thing I'll add is that we also understand that there are conditions, and I think Sharon will talk a little bit about that, inside that have to be corrected immediately. And that's why we have family members here to talk about it, because we do feel like this is the body that can make those recommendations to support those changes. And so thank you for having the public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Lamar.
And I'll pass it to Sharon.
I am time.
Okay.
You got 3 minutes, and I'm time.
All right. So Sharon, you got it? You ready?
Hello, my name is Sharon Brown. I'm with the Mississippi Prison Reform Coalition. We have came together with various organizations to try to make some changes into what's going on. This is not a new situation. It's been happening. As of yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, another inmate was found dead. So I appreciate you all for making the necessary changes to our governing body to fix the problem. But I just want you all to know we are here to be an ally. But we're gonna put pressure on the legislator and anybody who don't want to see a change come. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ask Haidifa Jones.
Talika Jones?
Haidifa, right here.
Okay, thank
I'm standing here in the gap for my, I lost a nephew and a brother to Mississippi State Penitentiary. The living conditions there is horrible. Someone spoke on something about the guards or whatever. Well, I'm here to say this, I'm not pointing fingers. However, I know firsthand from both my brother and my nephew that there are staff members taking in drugs, cell phones, so much, and they're making this a gang-related issue. Everything that's going on behind those prison walls is not gang-related. It's not. I feel like what they're eating and all of this, everything that they're going through here, they need to be rehabilitated before they're let out, because if not, what are the chances of success once they hit the streets? I mean, it's slim to none. Nobody's gonna wanna come out and support our people that's locked up, but at the same time, nobody wants to deal with them when they get out and their mind is messed up from being treated like animals and whatnot while they're incarcerated.
That's right.
So, like I say, November 19th, we got a call saying that my nephew had hung himself in Camp 29. Mind you, he was supposed to be in a one-man cell, which was protective custody. Well, another inmate leaked a video out, and I will not call names, leaked a video out of my nephew murder, and it was not a hanging. And it showed the guard unlocking the door, letting 6 inmates in to kill my nephew. So, you know, this has got to be stopped. This has got to stop. I couldn't save my brother or my nephew, but hopefully we can come together and save somebody else. That's all I have.
So the next person we have is Pamela Brown. And before Pamela goes up, the importance of this is for you to hear community recommendations, because we understand that you have a hard job to make, and we want to make sure that you hear from us, because we are those people that the dollars come from as well. And we also are those people that people come home to, right? And though, yes, you hear from some people that they don't want to take their loved ones back in, but I think this room shows you that there are a lot of other people who want to see their loved ones come home. Who want to keep that Pamela Brown.
Pamela Brown.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm stepping in this morning for my brother. He was released on the 6th. And it was a horrific ordeal what he went through there. I have been incarcerated before in the women's side. I know what goes on. I hate that regardless of what we have done, you do deserve to be punished. Regardless. But the way they are living should not continue. My brother came in a nervous wreck. He's been to prison several times. And this time, he came out totally different. He can't sleep. He's hearing voices that these people are crying, saying, help me. What can he do? He's in a 2-man cell also. There's a lot of people out here need to come home to their family. I have another loved one, is doing mandatory time, 35 years, has never been in the system. No one is hearing them. Please help us. That's what we're asking. I know they deserve to be punished for what wrong they've done, but why not give mandatory people a second chance at life? Everybody don't have to be what they did. Just give them a second chance. Hear us. We're standing out here for them because we have loved ones. Yes, everyone should be punished. But when I see my brother come home and falling down and crying, telling me what he endured and what he saw and what he ate, that's not right for anyone. No one. Please help these people. Release them, if whatever the cost is.
Speaking on behalf of the committee, I think everybody here hears you.
Okay.
Hears your emotions.
I mean, it's just very emotional,
It should be.
and I think about this every day. My brother calls every day. What's
How long
wrong?
has it been since you were incarcerated?
I was incarcerated in 2007.
I went through the penal system for women in 2007, and it was bad.
Yes, sir.
When I went through it in late December, I saw light years improvement. I saw light years improvement. I have not seen light years improvement at some of the male facilities. But the illustration I used a while ago on the shelf on Justice Waller's desk is true. This committee, since 585 was implemented a couple of years ago, and this committee has taken much action, I think we've really tried to hear your voice and hear people
Well, I
like you
appreciate it.
and make attempts. But the legislature and the government, or any of our states or our government, sometimes can be slow. I personally believe that the pendulum is swinging such that we're gonna have receptive ears in the legislature for funding the penitentiary this year. Can I guarantee that?
No,
I
you
can't.
cannot.
But I do believe that the pendulum is swinging because of public input, just like this.
Let the people speak.
But know that with mandatory time, those people deserve to come home too. They've been there long enough, 13 years,
Speak.
35.
Let the
And
people speak.
I
in the
hear
state
you.
of Mississippi.
I hear you loud and
Please
clear.
help us. That's all we asking for, nothing else. And thank you all.
Every sentence that we make, a court, you have to, I do, go through that process.
Even if they're first time offender, you give them that much time, Judge, come on, that's unbelievable.
So I mean, I think that some of this is we can have additional conversation.
Who's your next
I think
one?
we've made it. So
Okay.
the next person is Albert Coleman.
Albert
And
Coleman,
then, we're gonna close by, I have a couple of.
I'm gonna let you close, and then I'm gonna open it up for other people that wanna talk. So
That sounds
I am on a time sheet, she went over, you went under.
I'm not gonna go over, mine's gonna be brief. I'm a convicted felon. I saw you guys say that, a lot of people don't change. I went to prison in 1995. I'm 51 today. I've been out of prison 25 years. I know what it's like to be behind bars and incarcerated. So this is my thing right here. You guys need to put something in effect about convicted felons that's unchanged and done redeemed from all the trouble that they used to be in, that they are doing things in another manner now. I do things for the young and youth in the community. I'm a part of the Repeals program. And I want to say that it's not number 2 things left for me as being a convicted felon. That's either be judged by 12 or carried by 6. It should be some kind of rules laid down that I should be able to be a law-abiding citizen again. Seriously.
Yeah.
Mr., what's your name?
Albert Coleman.
Mr. Coleman, I totally agree, and every time that I non-adjudicate a younger person meeting, I do not give them a felony record. I make them write a 3-page paper on what it means to have a felony record, and the list, they can fill up 5 pages. Every time I have a jury trial, I say, you cannot serve if you've been a prior convicted felon, even if it was 40 years ago, even though you may vote. And every trial almost, particularly in some of my counties or my rural counties, somebody comes up and say, I was convicted 40 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, and I say, I'm so sorry you
Let
didn't.
me ask you something. Okay, but let me say this to you though. So I've been a victim of gun violence. I was shot down several times since I've been out of prison for no apparent reason. Everybody that I got into it with, for some apparent reason, that they had a gun. I was gunned down. So what am I, a moving target in the streets of Jackson?
You can't.
I'm just asking because I'm a convicted felon that I should be allowed my rights back after being 25 years and not getting in no more trouble.
Hold on. There
I'm
is
just
a
saying.
method for rehabilitation. I've signed it. It's called a certificate of rehabilitation, and to get a gun for particular reasons, if you can prove yourself to a judge. I have it all the time, come to me, somebody says, I want a gun to go hunting or for protection, and they have a litany of things they have to prove to the judge. And if you get a lawyer, that could happen.
I understand
There
what
is a-
I understand what you're saying, but you're doing. Hold up, I understand what you're saying, but you're doing all the talking, ain't doing no listening. That's what you got to do. I'm just being honest. And yeah, I turned down parole, cause I knew if I come home on parole, they wanna give me parole at the last 4 weeks or left of my time. Why not go on the state and come home and be right?
It's not designed to fail.
That's what I'm talking about. Let the people speak.
Your turn. You said a lot of things.
I'll pass on to Ricky.
Okay, so one, it takes a lot for folks to come out and share their stories and their pain. And I want folks to understand that. And I know that sitting here and having to listen to it is a hard thing because you all have a job to do, right? But from the people who are most experienced, those that are living in the areas where harm is happening the most, those of us who have loved ones inside or loved ones who have perpetrated those crimes, right? Who have caused that violence, it's important to hear what works. Because oftentimes us as advocates, us as lawyers, as all of the folks up here on this panel, we're far removed from the situation by the time we're working, right? We've been in it for years. And so we need to take some lesson, right, from what community that is directly impacted saying is going to help and be the solution. And we've seen it happen all around the nation. I've seen change all around the nation, and I believe that it can happen in my hometown here. And so, that is the last person, unless there's, you can open it up to the floor. But I do want to, these are the list of things that we've seen most recently inside of facilities. And yes, facilities have improved to some extent, and we know, all of us know here, all of us here on the panel and all of us that work here know that there's a lot more that needs to be done. Nobody's arguing that. But we know there are no lights and no electricity in some of the facilities for 2 to 3 weeks, that there are broken toilets, that there's rats and roaches, that there's no, that people are in cells for 24 hours, no water, there's definitely understaffing, there's mold on the floor, there's a need for medical care immediately, and I'm gonna stop there. The list is pretty extensive.
And sir, as you hear amongst these very sick and dehumanizing conditions that majority of these people are. My name is Theodore Lott. I'm just a regular citizen. As you hear amongst these very sick and dehumanizing conditions, as a man of law of nature, does that bother you all like the very least of what these inmates are going through? And you touched earlier about the basis of basically mental preparation after inmates are released. Big Boy from Outkast said, incarceration without rehabilitation is obsolete. I believe that should be some type of system or program that should be implemented for these inmates to have some type of mental preparedness while they're in there, so when they're released, they already have the condition of mind state to be able to be inserted back into society. Does that not concern you all at the very least?
We're here, and nobody here gets a dime for being here. We're all volunteers.
Understood.
We have tried to do the best we can, and we do understand exactly what this young lady said, and we're trying to implement that. But we're all volunteers. We don't get paid extra for this. You want to talk?
Yeah, I want to get back to the inside. I think, an intensive program while enduring the inmate's prison stay, right?
Yes, sir.
That estimated $7,500 you said it would cost. Couldn't y'all make that a fine? You know, to do something, just not to say it can't be done. You could put that money as a fine to that citizen, because that's what you're trying to do, make him a citizen again. Put that money as a fine, so when he learns that inside, he has more of a chance to come out and get employment, okay? And also, making the small amounts of drugs a misdemeanor, I don't see no problem with that either. Because if he becomes a felon, that's less chance for him or her to get a job.
Yeah.
You know, y'all don't see the catch-22 in that.
That's right. That's right.
You gotta understand that, okay? And that would lessen the felony rate as well.
Okay, let's reel this back in. They're making recommendations to the legislator. They are the ones who create the conditions. They only can make recommendations. Some of the recommendations they have made works. Some of them don't work. We must put pressure on the legislator. So I'm asking you all, as a body, what do we need to do to ensure that the legislators who hold the pen is hearing us do what they supposed to do? I understand. It's problems across the whole entire thing. So if you all could give us that, then we will be so grateful.
Andre?
Just call your legislator, go to the Capitol.
Oh, we've done that.
That's all you can do. Doing everything you can do, you just can't stop.
Ma'am,
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be fair here, let everybody have a voice. But we still gotta keep it going.
Okay. I'm not a family member, but my life has been really altered by knowing a lot of family members who've had people locked up. And what I am impressed with when I came today is that you all are here, and I know Andre and the job that you all do, but what I have noticed on there is there are no family members. So one of the recommendations that would be wonderful for you all to make would be to ask whoever appoints you to put a family member, and preferably a woman family member, because it's a lot of men up there. That's right. And there are a lot of, for all the men up there, there are significant women in their lives.
The law was written by the legislature, so we didn't have any.
Well, but you could recommend those, Steve. You know, you could recommend, we would like that recommendation. That would be, I'll do it for you.
We hope our recommendations will be read too. This is the sixth time.
It's just,
I do
I
not have
know.
any issue with making that into part of our recommendation.
That would be
Whether it falls
wonderful.
on deaf ears or not, but he is doing that
Well,
right.
maybe this person that does this reform group, maybe that would be something we could do as a group to be able to recommend it. We would add to you.
There are a lot of things you mentioned that we support. So whatever we need to do to help support.
All right, keep
Support
it
you.
going, young lady.
My name is Pauline Rogers. I'm with the Reaching and Educating for Community Hope Foundation. I'm an ex-offender. I've been out 31 years. I have a reentry campus, 5 transitional homes. I work with Mr. Pickett. I've been in this room numerous of times. And to what Sharon was saying, the legislators, that's why I spend a lot of my time, because I'm not about a lot of lip service. And down at the legislators, come June the 21st, I will be at the state capitol. So I'm telling you now, June 21st, come to the capitol. June 21st, come to the capitol. January 21st. January 21st, come to the state, the capitol. But I'm just saying, to what everybody said, we're all in this room for the same thing. But leaving this room, I'm telling you, we got to stay in contact with our families to know what's going on behind those prison walls. Because it's like the judge was saying, when a lot of the people leave home, they don't have anywhere to go because we haven't stayed in contact. We haven't done our part either. And so the time is now. We're in national news, and the time is now. You got Rukia leading with the People's Advocacy. You got the prison reform movement, and everybody's in the room. So we have to do what we have to do. January 21st, state capitol. Because when they come down there, there's only 2 or 3 of us, they don't take it seriously. They don't take us seriously. And I've been doing this stuff for 30-some years. I worked with the sheriff before down in Adams County when Wilkerson County was whatever. I was taking care packages in there with him and several other members of the church. November the 11th, 2019, I went to state senators, told them this situation, it was about to explode. Senator John Horn had a radio program. And some of the inmates that had a cell phone called in there to give it to them. So all of that, and now here we are. And I'm saying again, January 21st, state capitol. Thank you.
Sheriff wants to say something. I'm gonna give the sheriff's opportunity first. Sheriff.
Yes.
Adams County Sheriff Natchez.
I just wanted to say this. I heard you all saying what you all can do from a grassroots effort, and it does start at your local levels. The first thing I would tell you to do is, I know you hear it all the time, but make sure you vote the right people in office. A lot of people are saying you a dream, but you need to look at their track record, because whatever track record they have there, and I'm not bashing any legislators, but they'll take it on to wherever they're going to. The second thing is, I want you all to know that I appreciate hearing from you as well as this board too, because I know these guys, these ladies up here are taking a lot of heat, but the reason you see that's those scales tilted is because of not being heard. So I appreciate the communication from both sides. Now you asked something, you asked about why you don't see somebody else up here on this panel. And this is my first day on this panel, and I appreciate you calling me. But by law, you know, that's the way it's set up through your legislators. Now your legislators can appoint 2 people, your lieutenant governor can appoint 2 people, and so can the speaker of the House. I would advise you all to go to the Capitol, just like Ms. Pauline said, and ask for a representative that's level-headed, that's willing to listen as well as willing to talk, to sit on this board, because your views, both sides need to be heard, so we can come to some kind of resolution there in the middle. That's all I want to say. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the panel here for inviting us to this meeting. My name is Charles Muhammad. I am representing my family, who is Esther Muhammad and Khalida Muhammad. In 1992, our son, Andre, was arrested in Brandon, Mississippi, and within 19 hours, he was found hung with his own shoelaces. We took our case locally, we took our case regionally, we took our case nationally, and we took our case internationally. This is nothing new for me personally. I receive calls consistently from that time to today. Not just calls from Mississippi, but calls from California, calls from Detroit, Michigan, calls from all over America, that this had happened to some relative that they have. So it's nothing new. I'm here and I am a little emotional because when I ever hear about this incident happening, it affects me. It affects my wife. It affects my daughter. My wife was carrying my daughter when this happened to us. So I am taking it personally, and I am here to say to all of you that I went to Washington, D.C. I met with Attorney General John Dunn during the presidency of Mr. Bush. And after that, I met with the Attorney General, Janet Reno, during the presidency of Bill Clinton. And they all denied justice from the Washington, D.C. to Mississippi. Now let me tell you that this has to go beyond emotions. This has to stop. And if it does not, you will see a major change throughout America as well as the world. None of us have done anything to deserve what is happening to our children, our family members in these prisons. One of the things that they said to us, that they would come and review
every jail. They reviewed 18 jails in Mississippi, and they responded and said that each one of those jails need to be rebuilt. And the response from the jail personnel was, well, if you want them to be rebuilt, let the federal government come in and rebuild these jails. What kind of response was that? This is nothing new. If we go back to our history here in America, the penal system is another extension of slavery. We must follow the money line. Now, how can private prisons come in and staff personnel and build jails if there were no connection with the government and the public? How can they come in? Do some of us own stock with the private jails? Maybe we need to look at the roles. How is it that now we can have a contract with the private prison system because it has been recognized and acknowledged that the local and state prisons are not in fair condition? I know you're going to give me some time, but I had to add my voice to the family members that are here. My heart goes out to you, because it's not a day go by that we have to deal with this knowing that our child has been murdered and is being mistreated in these prisons. We haven't even talked about the medical attention to those that are there. Why is it that none of the inmates are receiving medical attention? Our children are dying. Our fathers, our cousins are dying every day throughout this state, and nobody is paying attention to that. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much.
These folks are nonviolent, right? So we want to remember that. And the overwhelming majority of folks that we have are nonviolent. So we want to just be mindful that we're talking about a system that we need to overhaul. And we know y'all all agree. Sorry. I'm sorry. She had her hand up first.
All right, you young lady.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you so much for letting me speak. My name is Georgia Corral. I'm going to make this as quickly as I possibly can, but I'm no good at talking fast. In reference to what you said earlier about feeling safe in society, I am a member of a group of people that have never felt safe in this society. There, Dr. Joy DeGruy Leary, her book called PTSD, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. There you have that to deal with in our community, which creates mental problems because PTSD is recognized in everybody else but us. There are other incidents. For example, a lady said during the 50th anniversary of the Selma, Alabama commemoration, she said, the principal said, when a black woman went to the school to register her child in a private institution, and he yelled out with a bullhorn, and I'm sure those of legal status know exactly what I'm talking about. He said, you stole our inheritance. So things are going as planned. The Civil War is still being fought. The plan, 1865, the law was written. Things are going as planned. After the World War II, things are going as planned. When it comes to the facilities for the soldiers to have their housing for their families and all the conveniences that the white soldiers had, it was not in place. So it's all law. Things are going as planned. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have hearings at 1 o'clock today. I'd like the motion to adjourn the meeting of the commission or the task force and continue it if those members, that they can stay. I don't know if we have any more official business to take up or not.
We do not have any more official business. I wanted to give people in the audience, opportunity to vent, to speak their piece. Mr. Mohammed, I think the committee, I know I heard you. I heard what you said, and I am in agreement with most of it, and I think most of these members are. Remember, this committee is not against you. This committee has tried to pull for you. I will give you the one last, I'll get two more people, then I'm done. You're next, red shirt, red coat.
Hey, how y'all? My name is John Dick, and I live here in Mississippi. I'm a rap artist here in the city of Mississippi. I've been to prison twice. I'd have been to half of every prison. I'd have been kicked out of 4 prisons. I'd have been to Parchman, Greene County, Wilkinson County, Temple County, and the living condition has been bad for years. You got guys, cells that you can actually walk up to and just pull open. How can I secure myself if I'm in here sleep and you can just walk in my cell? You got no fire extinguishers, no nothing, paint chipping off the wall, mold. They barely feed you. Like if you're not making commissary, you're not getting fed. You getting a small portion, but the state supplies all this money, so why is it lack anywhere? Like with these problems, like this is my main thing is, let's fix this inside. These guys, these living conditions, they water, they food, the stuff that they need. You got people that have heard from their family, period, at all, because they can't make a phone call, because the phone on the wall doesn't work. You see what I'm saying? So it's a lot of money that's been not put to use. So let's fix this problem.
Thank you. Go to your legislature. I'm gonna take one more and you got to handle
Those issues, sir, those issues, you have correctioners and commissioners, deputy commissioners here that can address those issues and speak to them. The way you just cut them off was very disrespectful.
Yeah.
And you say that you're in ally with us, not with that attitude.
Amen.
I'm making a motion that we adjourn. Is there a second, please?
No.
That's what he do. Let's go,
We living in America.
We might well leave, man. We might well leave.
Now, media is here. If you want to talk to the media, you're welcome to.
We might well leave.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Hey, wait a second. I don't think the meeting is adjourned yet.
Listen up.
Has the meeting been adjourned yet? It hasn't been adjourned yet. So if you need to leave, please leave, but the meeting has not been adjourned yet. So we're gonna allow the process to happen however it's gonna happen. Just to be clear, the recommendations that we heard today that I believe everyone here supports are parole reform, the release of aging folks 60 years and older. We want to see mental health services. We want to see substance abuse services. We want 585 retroactive. We support the low-level drug offenses becoming misdemeanors for sexual assault. Those are the things that we heard today. That from our consistent collection, the recommendations that the Reform Coalition has that are in line with the recommendations that this body has presented to us here today. So I wanted to say that.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful at all, but I don't think that the visitors fully understand that this is the 6th year that we've met and sent recommendations over. So we're just as frustrated.
So let's do something.
On some
That's what we're
degree.
here for. Let's do something.
Unfortunately, in our individual capacities, we don't have the power. All we can do is send the recommendation.
But now we know that you have these recommendations, and we're going to say that these are the recommendations that we heard you all have, and we support those recommendations. And that for us is also powerful, because it gives us more leverage to push harder as well.
And let me say this to the lady here in the blue jacket. I understand your pain, I understand where you're coming from. I just met Judge today. And I know this is a very hot topic, but I really don't think he meant any harm, even though it came, even though it came off the way it did. And I think why the judge did that is because we had heard it so much, and we have that documented as issues that we're gonna address. So I'm gonna apologize.
This is nothing we should get used to.
I understand that, but I'm gonna apologize to you for the judge.
And we're not in the courtroom.
And we're not in the courtroom. Yes, sir, you're right. We're not in the courtroom. But I don't want you to leave thinking that what has been said here is falling on deaf ears, though. We hear you loud and clear, okay?
Thank you.
And if I need to apologize to you, Miss Blue Sweater, I will.
Well, no, it wasn't an apology to me because I wasn't speaking. It would have been an apology to the young man that was speaking that was so
Oh,
abruptly
the
cut off.
red jacket. Well, I did not mean to disrespect you. However, I do have a responsibility to move it on. One last time, this is it.
Give us some ideas to do it differently. What has been working in other states where they overcame those hurdles and got something going that really could happen, really could work?
There have been several members that have been on this board that have resigned because nothing was happening.
Right.
We can't give up.
No.
We can't give up. And many of these people that have been here for several times are really trying to maintain and we believe we've accomplished things. I'll get back to my ship.
We have one more.
Well, we won't give up, but let's
We
do
don't want to
something
give
new.
up, but we've had members that got discouraged and said, see,
She gonna be free.
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to say, Mr. Steve Pickett is leaving right now, but I wanted to say that I was released from MDOC. I was in that 37+ years. I survived. I came out. No, I didn't have family of no sort. It's not that they didn't want me, it's that I didn't have none because I was the only child. So after you grow up, I'm 68 years old. All right, so be it. So I have to do this time, and I do it. But the conditions is what everybody heard about, what everybody has talked about. But thank God that I survived it, because what they have in there, you would not even imagine. And those sisters and all those people and every human being that is in prison, in Parchment, in MDOC, and wherever they may be, for them to sustain what they're trying to eat, because there is no money for them or families that can take care of them. It's ridiculous, and it is not for no human being on earth. So the legislature ought to be listening and apply it, change the laws, pin pushers, whatever you may want to call them. But what I'm saying is, give every person that's in there a chance. And my heart goes out to the sisters and the family that have had lost loved ones. I was contacted at 2 o'clock in the morning to tell me that their nephew was hung. I'm not nobody. I'm not nobody for you to call or tell, but they reached out who they thought, because I advocate for those who are behind the wall. I speak for those who are elderly, the infirm. I want to see the aged people get out. I want to see all those that have aged. They're 80, they're 75. What can they do? It's nothing they could do. They're not no harm to anyone.
thank you, Mr. No, wait.
She has a question. Just one quick question. It's just real simple.
Then I'm gonna adjourn.
Have you ever been inside the prison?
Multiple times. I'm going sad now.
That,
Not
where they
as
live
an
at?
inmate, no.
Okay. Well, I know you wasn't an inmate. I was just
No,
asking,
I
have you been
visited
back
every
there
prison that we have.
to see the
Yes,
living conditions
because I take my
firsthand?
responsibilities very serious as to where I sent them. And I did it, and I go see them, and I've done it on multiple occasions.
When's the last time you've been at Parchment?
Less than 3 months ago.
Go there today.
Exactly, my point.
When's the last time you went?
I can't get in. We can't
Nobody
get in.
can get in. They block you off. You can't get in.
Nobody can get in, Your Honor.
They won't let
Families
nobody
can't
in.
even visit their family.
Unannounced, things on lockdown.
Unannounced.
Nobody can get in.
Exactly why we
Nobody
know.
can get in that prison for
That's
like
exactly
16
how we
days.
know all the drugs
Nobody.
and weapons and stuff is going in through the guards.
We're talking over each other.
I'm not
We're
trying
gonna
to talk
stand
over
in
anybody.
adjournment.
I'm telling you factual.
We're gonna stand adjourned, committee.
If nobody can get in,